Hello again, and welcome to Huddle Psychology's YouTube channel. And this is our very first video. And as I mentioned in our introductory video, almost 4 or 5 of our first videos, I can't remember how many, I'm not sure about our content calendar, but the first 5 videos, I think, is going to focus on the theme of psychological manipulation. And I explained last time why we want to do that because, as I mentioned earlier, we've always have suffered from psychological manipulation, sometimes knowingly and then not knowing what to do about it, and sometimes completely unknowingly, don't not even knowing, not even realizing that we are being manipulated in our everyday lives. So that's why I thought it's an important subject matter to tackle up front. So here we go, right? With the first topic that we are going to talk about under the theme of manipulation is a topic called gaslighting. Yes, you heard me right. Sounds ominous and sounds familiar to some of you or unfamiliar to some of you. But the term gaslighting refers to a kind of psychological manipulation where an individual or perhaps a group tries to redefine your perception of reality. They want to make you question your sense of reality, your perception of reality. Actually, the term comes from a 1938 play where in the husband in the play, in the story, is trying to make his wife feel that she's insane by turning down their gaslights and then telling her that it's actually not happening. So that's the source of this word called gaslighting. So it's essentially a manipulative technique where the gaslighter or the manipulator effectively wants to confuse you and distort your sense of reality. That's essentially what gaslighting is all about. And it can happen in all sorts of relationships, at workplaces, in a marital affair, within a parent-child dynamic. It can happen in any kind of relationship. So let me give you a few examples of how gaslighting actually works in reality. Now, let's talk about a relationship scenario. You decide you were hurt in the past by a comment made by your partner or your spouse, and you decide to confront, ask the person about it. So you go up to the person and try to have a conversation. But what happens? The partner, instead of dealing with that issue directly, he or she will say something like, "Oh, you're too sensitive. I didn't mean it that way." So you see how easily he or she kind of deflects and distorts the reality. And this is a pattern. And if that pattern keeps developing over a period of time, you then you begin to question your own feelings. And then eventually you might actually think that you are too sensitive. That's how the gaslighter makes you distort your own reality. Another example, in the office, at the workplace. Suppose your colleague is stealing your thunder all the time, stealing your ideas all the time in meetings and presentations and all of that, and you see this as a pattern, and you decide to speak up against it, and you go up to the person and you bring this point up. What does he say, or what does she say? The person might say something like, "No, you're imagining things. Nobody remembers it like that. You're thinking about these things. It's not true." And then it's happening again and again and again as a pattern. Before long, you start doubting your own memories and then you completely stop speaking up. That can easily happen, and that does happen in workplaces quite often. Let's take another example. At home, say between a parent and a child, and the parent can go to the child and say, "You're being too dramatic. It did not happen," when the child is actually bringing up a painful childhood experience. So, what this does when the parent says this is that it makes the child question his or her memory of the incident. It makes it unimportant to them, right? And it distorts their reality. So these are some examples of how gaslighting uh, actually happens in reality. But let's look at now how what are the techniques, the gaslight, how does it actually work? How does a good gaslighter go about manipulating us? Let's look at a few tactics that is very commonly used. There are mainly four steps to this. Let me just enumerate them first before getting into the explanation. The first step is always denial, right? The second step is minimization. The third step is shifting blame. And finally, the fourth step is always creating confusion. So let's go back. Denial. Gaslighters are experts. They are experts at denying anything and everything, even if there is evidence to the contrary. So they are likely to say things like, "I didn't say that. I didn't do that. That never happened." Even though there is evidence, they will simply deny it outright. So when you approached your partner about the hurt comment, "You're too sensitive. I didn't mean it that way. It did not happen." Right? It's an absolute denial there. So that's the first step. Second step, minimization. They belittle your feelings. They make you feel small by saying things like "you're too sensitive," etc., etc. They always shift the blame on you. That's the third step. It's never their fault. So if you are too sensitive, you are the problem. They are never the problem, right? And finally, creating confusion. Gaslighters are experts at mixing truth and false, reality and lies. And they mix it in such a way that you find it very difficult to find footing. You don't know how to differentiate between what is real and what is unreal. And all of these techniques, you will realize, are used to make you lose a sense of balance of reality and keep you close and dependent on the gaslighter for a sense of reality. So that's how gaslighting actually works. So denial, minimization of your feelings, um, thirdly, blame shifting, and finally, creating confusion. Let's look at some of the common signs and symptoms of gaslighting. How does it actually make you feel when you are gaslighted by a manipulator? First and foremost, you're likely to feel that you're second guessing yourself all the time. You're always thinking about things. You're never clear about things. You're doubting yourself. You're second guessing yourself. So that's the first symptom to watch out for. Secondly, you're confused to the level where sometimes you start thinking that you're losing your mind altogether because your sense of reality is being distorted again and again and again. You feel confused. So that's a major symptom to watch out for. Thirdly, feeling isolated. because whatever you say, it seems that nobody is willing to listen to you or nobody is willing to believe you. So you're likely to feel isolation, you're likely to feel greater amount of loneliness in the relationships. So that's another symptom, another sign to really watch out for. Another major signal to watch out for is that you are unable to take any decisions by yourself without the need, the constant need for approval or validation, especially from the gaslighter, because you don't have a hold of reality. You're always dependent on the gaslighter to make decisions. So your ability to take decisions is greatly diminished if you're being gaslighted, right? So that's another major problem to watch out for. Another interesting one is that you keep apologizing for apparently no reason, even though you might not have done anything wrong. Because the gaslighter has twisted the reality so much, you feel that you might have done something wrong and you end up apologizing needlessly again and again and again. And finally, you feel you're tiptoeing, you're walking on eggshells around people. That's another symptom to really watch out for. So, if these things are happening to you, or if these are familiar to you, then it's probably important for you to take a step back and analyze what is actually happening in your relationship. Are you being gaslighted or not? It's good to take a step back and do a bit of analysis. Having looked at some symptoms, I think it's important to also ask, why do people gaslight? Why do they do this? It seems like a mean thing to do. Well, why do people manipulate? The first and most important reason why people manipulate is really for control and power. It's a way for people to get control over you, control over your decisions, control over your choices, and to get a power over you so that they can have a sense of dominance over you, right? So that is one major reason why people gaslight. Secondly, narcissism. People with narcissistic personalities love to thwart your self confidence. They love to destroy your self confidence so they can prep up their own inflated sense of self. That is how narcissistic personalities operate. So those kinds of personalities can use gaslighting as a method to artificially inflate their own sense of self. So narcissism can be another major motivating factor for gaslighting. Then there is insecurity, because gaslighters create dependency. They make you dependent on them for a sense of reality, for understanding what is true and false. And by creating that dependency, the gaslighter feels that, ha, you are dependent on me, and therefore you will not go away from me. You will always stick to me, and therefore I'll never be alone. Right? So there is a deep sense of insecurity in gaslighters, and they achieve that they try to fight that insecurity by creating dependency on you. They try to make you dependent on them to solve their own insecurity problems. So these are some of the major reasons. And there's one more reason, is avoiding accountability. Gaslighting is a very simple way to avoid any kind of accountability. So, like I said, the example of the relationship between two partners, when one partner simply says that you're too sensitive, I didn't mean it. So the person is simply just walking away essentially from the conversation, not taking any sense of accountability of his or her comments, and simply saying, you are the problem, not me. So I am not taking any responsibility for my actions. I am not taking any accountability for my actions. You are the problem. So an avoidance mechanism. It's a defense mechanism as well, right? For gaslighters to avoid accountability, they gaslight. These are some of the main reasons why people continue to do gaslighting, and we need to be aware of it. Now, even though we need to be aware of it, it's very, very important for me to really stress that under no circumstances is gaslighting appropriate, and under no circumstances should it be accepted. We need to understand this, and understanding is the first step to break away from the cycle of manipulation. That's the fundamental reason why we are doing this content for you. So we know why people do it. So the next question is, what can you do about it? So, if these things are actually happening to you, if there is a gaslighter that is making you suffer and you are being gaslit, then what can you possibly do? First and foremost, learn to trust your feelings. It's very, very important to know that, to do that. If you're feeling something is off, if you're feeling something is wrong, then don't dismiss it. Trust your gut, trust your feelings. They are valid. It is very important to know that your emotions and your feelings are valid. Secondly, document everything. Create paper trails, create evidence. Because what is the gaslighter always trying to do? They're trying to dismiss things, correct? They're always trying to lie. They're trying to create a smokes and mirrors kind of thing. So when they say that I didn't do this or I didn't say that, it did not happen, but if you have evidence for it, then you can find grounding in that evidence. And in cases where the gaslighter simply does not concede, you will have evidence to show them as well. Whether they accept it or not is another matter altogether. But if you keep evidence, it's good for your own mental health, because you will not be led astray. You will not live in some fantasy land if you have evidence to show that things did happen, right? So it's always important to write things down, create an evidence bank, and return to those evidences so that you can be grounded in reality. So that is a good second step to follow. Thirdly, it's very important to create boundaries. Set very clear boundaries. Saying things like, I will not accept being treated this way is something that you can very clearly communicate. So you need to create very clear boundaries with individuals who seem to be gaslighting you. Creating safe boundaries are important so that you are not led astray and so that you're not automatically under the control of somebody else. So try and create boundaries. Get external perspective as much as possible, because that can create clarity, that can offer you some perspective. So talk to your friends, talk to your trusted friends or family members, maybe even therapists who can listen to you and who can give you an external perspective on what is actually happening. And that might be important, because when you're inside the problem, it's like the frog who is sitting in the vessel that starts boiling. It doesn't know that the temperature is rising, and it just eventually dies, right? But if it is a boiling water, and you put a frog in, the frog immediately jumps out, because these are two different instances, right? It's important for us to understand that sometimes when we are in the problem, we are not able to see it clearly. So it's important that we talk to others, talk to family members to get their perspective, get external clarity, and that will help us break from the shackles of manipulation. So that is important. And finally, in extreme cases, if the gaslighter just does not seem to be changing despite your best efforts, then perhaps the most healthiest thing to do is to limit contact. limit the contact, or in extreme cases, just completely cut off contact if it completely becomes toxic for your mental and physical well-being, right? So that's the last thing to really do, but it is an option that is open to you. You should limit contact if the relationship is becoming toxic and unhealthy. So these are some of the very good and effective, scientifically effective ways for you to protect yourself against gaslighting. Now, if you know someone who is suffering from gaslighting, or you feel is under the influence of a gaslighter, then what can you do? I think that's also an important thing for us to discuss. If you are uh, uh, friends with someone who's being gaslighted, then first and foremost, the most important thing is for you to be able to listen without judgment. Create a space for him or her to come to you and to discuss with you, to talk to you about their concerns, and refrain from passing any kind of judgment. Secondly, please learn to validate their feelings. Remember, the gaslighter is doing the opposite. The gaslighter is not validating their feelings. The gaslighter is always minimizing their feelings. So, if you are going to be able to help your friend, then you need to be there for him or her by validating their feelings, by making them understand that their feelings are true and real and they deserve attention. So, validate their feelings. Thirdly, offer support but not necessarily solutions. We are experts at offering solutions. Sometimes what people don't want is ready made solutions. They need you to support them. So you should rather ask perhaps questions like, I am here for you. How would you like me to help you? That's a better question to ask. That is a better thing to do than offer ready made, one size fits all solutions, because no two individuals and no two cases are exactly the same. So let's always refrain from making judgments and passing solutions and resolutions. We are offering ourselves as friends, and we need to validate their feelings and help them, make them understand that you are there for them to help you, and offer them support rather than ready made solutions. And finally, please encourage them to take professional help if none of these things are working out, and if the gaslighting is getting out of control, then encourage them to take professional help, where the person can actually go and meet a counselor or a therapist to better able to process their problems and emotions and issues. So that is something that you can certainly do with your friend or a family member who is suffering from gaslighting. So that is basically what gaslighting is all about. We covered quite a lot of things. We talked about the definition of what gaslighting is. It is basically a manipulative technique where an individual or a group kind of distorts your sense of reality, your perception of reality, and people do it to gain control and power over you. Narcissism is another reason, insecurity is another reason, and to avoid accountability. These are reasons why people gaslight you. You can protect yourself by setting boundaries, by documenting things, by trusting your feelings, by limiting contact. These are things that you can do to help yourself. And if you know people who are already being gaslighted, then please listen without judgment. Offer them support and not necessarily solutions. Encourage them to seek professional help. These are ways that you can help your friend or your family member who is under the influence of gaslighting. So, that is a little bit about gaslighting. We talked at a fair bit of length. And I really guide you to our website, our blog. If you want to know more about gaslighting, we will have a long form article on our blog, all ready made with offering you extensive references and suggested readings. If you really want to dig deeper into the subject, please be our guest to go and read more and find out more if you would like. And as far as this video is concerned, if you enjoyed watching this video, if you thought that this was remotely useful to you, then please like and share the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And by sharing and by subscribing, you can help us spread more awareness about this manipulative technique called gaslighting. And by increasing people's awareness, you can help them cut loose from the cycle of manipulation. That's what we all want. So thank you once again for joining us, and until our next video, keep flourishing. Thank you.